The mighty Glenn Tilbrook is playing live at Sage Gateshead on Tuesday, the 27th of March, and he's on the line with me now. How's life treating you, Glenn?
It's great. I love what I do. I feel very privileged to be able to do it. And being the age I am, I'm not, as old as the old rockers, but I'm 60 now. So this is, it feels brilliant. I feel really lucky.
No, congratulations. Was that a recent 60th birthday?
The end of August last year.
Was there a huge bash?
I did have a bit of a bash. Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
It was great. It was great. We've had a good few years of Squeeze, and we sort of managed to reposition ourselves, which is a real, honour for a band like us, because we've been, I think, safely to say, out of fashion almost our entire career, but we seem to have picked up a new audience as well as regaining some of the old audience. So, when we tour now, we're playing to bigger crowds than we ever did when we were first and second time together. So, that's really gratifying.
It is terrific to hear.
I like to think that it's due in some degree towards the fact that we're now a band that is still writing and recording good stuff. I think it's a different landscape out there for sure. I know that, but we have to have something to hang our hat on. It can't always just be the past.
No, totally. I was going to say congratulations on two excellent new Squeeze albums over the last couple of years, because great, Cradle to Grave, I loved. The Knowledge, which came out at the back end of last year, I thought was a fabulous album. And I remember you and Chris... No, pleasure. I remember you and Chris Difford saying a few years ago that you were intending to start recording again. Did it take a little while for the stars to align and for you both to be free to do it?
It did, really. I think that... Cradle to the Grave, when I read Danny Baker's book and got in contact with him, I think that gave Chris and I something to focus on, and also an area lyrically that Chris is comfortable with for us to start out writing together, which was pretty a nostalgic look back. And I think to have that as a vehicle was ideal for us to start off. And, being aligned with the TV series, gave us a little, spotlight on us, which was really fantastic.
I was going to ask how instrumental Danny Baker had been in all of this. Did he approach you, or did you go to him?
No, well, Danny and I live in the same area, and we grew up in the same area. So I remember so vividly, I had flu, and I was in bed, and I read his book just in one go. It was a very easy and a very funny read.
It's great, isn't it?
And so I called him and said, look, I don't say this to people. I have never said it before, but I think it would make a great musical.
Right.
And he said, well, funny enough, you know what? We're doing a TV series. It'd be great to have some songs in that. So it really got started from there. That was in 2012, I think. So,
right.
And these things take a while for the gestation to come around and then to shoot it. But it was a lovely, lovely thing to be involved with.
Did you bump into Danny when you were kids then in the streets of Deptford? Did you know him at all? Because you're of similar ages, I think, aren't you?
Yes, we are. But you know what? Chris Difford and Danny went to the same school, so although Chris would have been 3 years older, so they didn't really know each other. I think they were aware of each other, but they didn't really know each other at school. But certainly by the time I was in my late teens, I'd met Danny, because he was on the sort of punk scene at the time, writing for Sniffing Glue, which was started by Mark Perry, who's someone else that I sort of came in contact with. So it was a very sort of tight little circle back in those days. So I got to know Danny then. And so we would come across each other every few years, all the time, ever since,
Yeah. It must be hugely nostalgic watching that TV series then, is it? Is that essentially your teenage years on screen?
It's very definitely Danny's teenage years, but I can relate to a lot of it. The very fond eye that he casts backwards, I think was really great and very skillfully realised by Danny and Jeff Pope, who co-scripted with Danny.
I've seen some lovely quotes in recent years from both you and Chris Difford, I think, saying that you've never felt so comfortable writing with each other as you have on these last couple of albums. That must be a really heartwarming feeling, is it, after all these years?
I think, and I always thought before we started writing that if we do anything, we've had 5 years of us paying tribute to our own past, and that is great. I've been inspired in particular by Brian Wilson and what his band could do to make me see that there could be something in that if you do it properly, and you're not just. I think there's a certain sort of level of commitment you need to do that thing properly, and we did that. But after a while, you need to focus on something else. Otherwise, it's very hard to stop yourself falling down into into feeling like you know what you're doing and taking your eye off the ball. And I'm very conscious of us not doing that and us always trying to push forward, because it's what keeps the band fresh, and it's what keeps our past fresh as well as pushing forward into the future.
No, there's some really nice kind of unfamiliar Squeeze sounds on The Knowledge in particular, I think. Yeah, I think it moved forward. I think lyrically, it was engaged slightly more with some things that Squeeze had never been engaged with, and I'm very proud of that. I'm proud of how Chris really rose to that challenge, and I think it's quite a different album to Cradle to the Grave, and it's one of our best, I think. It is. No, the one that really gets to me, is Final Score, the one about the footballer that's been abused by his coach as a kid. It's an absolutely heartbreaking song, but a beautiful one.
Chris watched Victoria Derbyshire when that whole thing, when I forget the guy's name, I'm really sorry, but he had the guy who first, spoke up about it. How hard it is in that culture to say that that's happened.
Yeah.
Football is a very male culture, and if anything, it looks slightly backwards in terms of, issues like that. So it took tremendous courage for him to speak up, and look what's tumbled out since, and how far-reaching that thing is. So for Chris to write about that and reflect that, I thought was great. What a great idea, and what a great tribute to those people who found the courage to speak up.
A Squeeze and Final Score from their album The Knowledge. And Glenn Tilbrook from Squeeze is playing at Sage Gateshead tomorrow night. Let's go back to my chat with Glenn. Can I ask about something that you're probably sick of talking about now, but I really thought it was an extraordinary moment on live TV. It was when you were on the Andrew Marr show, and David Cameron, who was the Prime Minister at the time, was sitting on the sofa a few feet away, and you changed the lyrics of Cradle to Grave to have a little dig at him. Was it something that was pre-planned, or was it just, did it occur to you 5 minutes before you went on? How did it come about?
You know what? I come from a working class background. I grew up in a council flat. My parents split up when I was 5, so I had a single parent bringing me up effectively, and I'm very grateful that I received that level of help and care at that point, and to see David Cameron demonise sink estates, which after all become sink estates when money is not spent on maintenance and you try and push that thing over to the private sector. It's a political point, but there are people involved there, and there are people just like me now who don't have the same degree of opportunity as I think I had at that point. And I wasn't going to do anything, but I listened to what David Cameron had to say, and it just made me feel really angry. So I changed the words. I didn't ask anyone. I changed the words because I just wanted to make a point that I thought what he was saying was unacceptable. So that was what that was all about. When I finished singing the changed words on Cradle, I actually started shaking.
I was going to say, how did you feel as that verse was approaching?
I felt fine when I was doing it. It was it was the afterwards. It was the afterwards of it. Cameron came up and congratulated us on a fine job, and I just I couldn't engage with him, and in fact I left the building as soon as possible, and then my phone I've never had my phone light up like that ever in my life. And it became, it went viral and the whole thing. And you know what was really extraordinary? In about a year after that, I had so many people coming up to me and thanking me for doing that. I've never had that. I've never had that before, nor was I seeking it. But it meant such a lot. It means such a lot to a lot of people.
I wanted to ask you as well about a really curious little incident that you probably don't remember this at all, but it's always fascinated me. This is about 20 years ago. I was watching Ian McNabb of Icicle Works fame playing live in Middlesbrough Town Hall Crypt, and I spent the entire gig thinking, that bloke up the bar doesn't half look like Glenn Tilbrook. And then at the end of the gig, Ian McNabb said, "Is that Glenn Tilbrook at the back of the room?" And indeed it was. And you got up on stage and jammed for a bit on a few Beatles songs. And for the last 20 years, I've been thinking, what's Glenn Tilbrook doing in Middlesbrough on a Tuesday night? Any recollection of this?
Probably on a night off on a tour. That's what I would imagine. Yeah, I love Ian McNabb. He's great, and he keeps on. He's got a very, strong sense of purpose, and hats off to him.
No, he's great, isn't he? It was an extraordinary moment that came out of nowhere. So thank you for that, 20 years on. So how does the set at Sage work? Is it you by yourself, kind of an acoustic set?
Yeah, I'm by myself, and really, the usual thing is I'm not working with a set list. So as time goes on, things change and evolve, and I'm sort of very up to, having some sort of interaction with the audience if someone wants to get up and play.
Right, really?
It's a fairly relaxed show, but I like the unpredictability of it.
Have you had people getting up on stage then?
I've had people get up on stage many times.
Yeah.
And most times it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I always make sure that I will say that, I'm inviting you up on stage, but I'm the boss. If it's not working, I will say so.
A big hook
because
available.
Because there have been times when before that, point, you let someone go on if they're drunk or can't do as much as they thought they could. It's just terrible for everybody. So you just have to be cruel to be kind and say, you know what? I think we're done. Thank you very much.
I find it very difficult to believe anybody in Gateshead on a Tuesday night would be under the influence in any kind of way whatsoever.
Absolutely not. Yeah. I'm sure no alcohol will have passed anyone's lips.
Are there plans for the next album, either a solo album or a Squeeze album? Anything in the offing?
At the moment, Squeeze we got some pretty good dates coming up in the summer at festivals and stuff. I think we're going to take stock and see what happens next. I'm not sure whether it's time for a solo record, a Squeeze record. One thing's for sure is that I've put my heart and soul into Squeeze. I'm really proud of where it is at the moment. So, it's great to have both options.
Oh, rightly so. Glenn, lovely to speak to you. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
For me too. Glenn Tilbrook is indeed coming to Sage and Gateshead Tuesday, 27th of March. And it's Bob Fischer here on BBC Tees.